I'm sorry for the outcome, is what Mike Norvell said at the beginning of the Florida State postgame press conference. Well, the Miami loss happened for 5 reasons I'm going to list, with the main 2 being the prime reasons Mike Norvell was on the hot seat in the first place.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I have just 5 topics to discuss and how to fix them here on today's show. It's a bonus episode on a Sunday. After going through the press conference and kind of reviewing the notes, the stats, and just replaying the game through my mind, I wanted to give the 5 reasons that I have for Florida State's loss. Many of these are self-inflicted wounds, but they're not really from 2025. They're from far, far back. And we'll get into that once I can do the countdown. I'm going to start at number 5, go all the way to number 1, and then I'm going to give my solutions for them. Be warned. This is not a quick solution. If you're looking for Florida State to just turn this sucker around, this is going to be a little more painful than you'd probably like. But I've never been one to shy away from reality, and Florida State has some deep-rooted problems that they're slowly getting themselves out of, but it takes time. So let's start with number 5, tackling. This is something that last year Florida State was terrible at. Totally different defense. They played a lot of man, different defensive coordinator who was not very good. And while Tony White was a really good hire, I still think he's a very good coach, there is something wrong when you get worse during the year, not better, at tackling. It's not that they're not physical, but their tackling stinks. This is partially, in my opinion, part of the culture problem that Florida State had going back to last season. Something goes wrong. I think a lot of these guys, they kind of just resort to bad habits. And it's probably going to take Florida State a while to get over that. And I mean years, unfortunately. You're going to have to get rid of some guys that are just never going to get the effort because they had bad habits from prior coaches. Sometimes that doesn't get out ever. These are the players you have. You can't just flip your entire roster in 1 year and it be a good roster. West Virginia tried to do that. It's not working out real well for them. You have to be able to do things in a certain manner every day in practice, get better at it. And of course, you have errors, you correct it. Something's wrong with Florida State's tackling, and I'm pointing at the coaches on this one to try to fix it the best they can. But again, this is not a fix probably this year, although I will get into how to fix it in the next part of the show to the best of your ability. But if you watched the game last night, and at any point, did you say, boy, Florida State's tagging the running back or the receiver, tight end, whatever, and he's falling backwards? No. I was listening to the ACC broadcast. They had Jimbo on, and he even brought it up. I was saying the same thing, and then he said it. Every tackle, they fall forward. Florida State, they have problems here. They are not hitting and wrapping up the way they should. They're not as sound as they should be. They did a much better job against Bama. It is so odd, but yet they've resorted to some of their techniques from last year. So I've got a couple of questions on this, and I don't know how this gets answered, but it is what it is. How much are they tackling in practice during fall camp? And number 2, are they even tackling at all right now? Because that's something to be discussed. And again, I'll get into that a little later in the show. Number 4. This is one that's not very much fun, but it's just true. There's not a lot of coaching for this. There's not a lot of, hey, we can fix this. Miami's players were just more clutch. Florida State outgained them. Florida State had more plays. Florida State did a pretty good job of containing Miami's running game. Miami didn't run the ball very well at all. They really didn't. For all the times that Miami fell forward, they only ran the ball for like 3 yards a carry. They really didn't run it that well. But at the same time, The most clutch player in this game was Carson Beck, followed very closely by Malachi. Malachi Tony just roasted Florida State's experienced secondary. He's an early enrollee by a year. He should be a high school senior right now, literally, at American Heritage in Fort Lauderdale area. And yet he just destroyed Florida State secondary. They were clutch. Florida State's players were not. Tackling, angles to the ball carrier, how to play zone, all of it. That is absolutely on Florida State to be better as players. You can yell at the coaches too, and there's certain parts of that. Again, we can get into that a little more later in the show. Miami's players are just more clutch. You had them in several situations that weren't very enviable, and they'd still get a first down. You didn't turn them over a single time. I don't think, I could be wrong on this, but to date this season, Florida State still has not recovered a fumble. That's a problem. There needs to be some things that we see here change post-haste with that. I'm going to have a little more of a Tony White podcast coming up pretty soon, but they have to be able to do something to get the ball out, get turnovers, and just make clutch tackles to get 3 and outs. Miami hit shots. Florida State player, they weren't even close on a couple of those shots. And then Malachi had one brought back. But Florida State, just the definition of non-clutch. That's just reality. Number 3, yes, outcoached. I'm going to bring this up in multiple ways, but let me give a couple of examples here. Gus got too cute in the second half. That's pretty obvious. The reverse flea flicker, screen, whatever that was. Miami did a great job of covering up, but Florida State's screen game was obliterated. It's something that I pointed out last week during the podcast. Florida State's offensive tackles are power guys. They are not good at getting to the perimeter. That's hurt them. It is what it is. And the number one reason on this whole list, we'll come back to that. But you still didn't do a very good job with the screen game. Squirrel White was a complete non-factor. I talked about that. Completely took him out of the game. And finally, even though you've got some pretty good tight ends, and Pittman's a good player, probably didn't use them very well. I don't know. Did Landon Thomas get a target? If he did, I don't remember. Maybe he did. They're not being utilized quite to the way they should. Part of that's on Tommy, too. Be clear. He's got to make the right read. But finally here, defensively, I said this on the reaction show. If you expect to play zone defense the vast majority of the time against a 6th-year senior quarterback in Carson Beck and expect that to go well, I got another thing coming for you. He is going to torch that. And he did. I talked about that some last week too. If Florida State, and I don't know why this would be, suddenly is unable to play man. Remember, they were man defense last year, predominantly. If you can't play man all of a sudden, why? You have to be able to mix and match. You can't just be man. You can't just be zone. You must make the other team's quarterback think, especially, again, he is a 6th-year senior. There is nothing Carson Beck hasn't seen because he was at Georgia for 5 years. Can you imagine the number of things that he saw under Kirby Smart? You're just going to play zone? That's predominantly what they did. Now, they had some man principles in there, and there were some times where they did some man, but overall, that's just not going to work. And on top of it, even in zone, like the Malachi Tony, the pass on 4th down where he ran through the secondary untouched, made one cut, I forget which safety it was, it completely whiffed. It was terrible. They just didn't have good spacing. We're in the middle of the season, and they're regressing in that as well. So is that on the coaches or the players, or is it both? I'm not sure. But there are signs of the defense unraveling. And it's weird because the run defense got better. It is so bizarre. I know they tried to commit a little more to the box, and I love the aggressiveness there. But that secondary, they didn't get the game plan, and they didn't read the room, the coaches, on terms of how that was going to go. Because it was so bad, it was comical. That's a coaching problem in some way. You've got to know, hey, this is what we want to do, but we can't do it. they should have had another backup plan, and they didn't have any answers after it didn't work early in the game. They had no answers. They had no adjustments. That is flat out a coaching problem on the defensive side of the ball. All right. When we come back, the number 2 and number 1 reasons for Florida State's loss, these will cut very deep, but they are 100% true, and it's going to cause a lot of consternation because this is not a short-term fix. That is next here on Locked On Seminoles. Today's show is brought to you by Peloton. It's shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. Whatever you want to do with Peloton, even if it's just the basic stuff, you're going to get there much faster. And with all their different instructors, you can carve out a way to get your body in the shape that you want. So let that happen with running, lifting, flexing, and just pushing forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. We are also brought to you by our friends over at Square. This episode is all about Florida State fixing things. Well, one thing you can do is fix your local neighborhood, or at least help it. Buy local. Your local neighborhood grocery store, coffee shop, restaurant, buy local. These are great places for everybody. Florida State fans around Tallahassee or wherever you live, there are a lot of opportunities. The Black Dog just being one of the great restaurants around town. Several places like that deserve your attention. And when you have the opportunity to help your neighborhood businesses will thrive. So will the whole neighborhood. So make sure you check out your local neighborhoods, whether you're in Tallahassee, Panama City, Orlando, or wherever you want to be. Square is a proud partner of over 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/Lockdown College to learn more. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. And finally, we are also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You can use halftime scores, over-unders, player props, NFL MVP projections, whatever you want to do. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Thank you again for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Brian Smith. Please like and subscribe for all the latest information on Florida State football and the honest truth, which is what I'm about to give you. Number 2 on my list for why Florida State lost. Kind of hinted at this in the first part of the show, but here's the real truth. Decisions made by Norvell for who he A, hired, and B, wouldn't get rid of until basically forced last year are lingering. I mentioned poor tackling. Well, some of those coaches are responsible to a certain degree. There's no doubt. I also mentioned poor angles. That's part of it too. A lot of players just don't take the best angles. They did a pretty good job. Again, run fits last night were pretty good, but they committed more to the line of scrimmage. I'm okay with that, but they just got smoked on the back end because of it. A lot of it's just poor technical stuff. It takes a long time. It's not like a spring practice and a fall camp. It can take a year or two because you're getting rid of players that just never get it, and you're trying to put in a different culture. That can take more than a season, which is obvious that it didn't take shape the way they really needed to. And finally, just going to bring it up, even with the new coaches, we can't be 100% sure yet because it certainly hasn't been proven that they're making all the right decisions on how much they tackle, bring guys to the ground during practice. I know this is not a friendly, but it's true. If Florida State's going to improve its tackling this year, it's going to be super high risk because there's one way to do it. Only one. In practice, during the season, you got to hit and tackle to the ground, which most coaches won't even consider. I don't know what Florida State's coaches are going to do. I doubt they will. Most coaches won't. But the tackling effort against Virginia sucked. It was better against Miami. But again, the chunk yardage plays based on missed tackles was well over 100 yards for Miami. Whoa, this Malachi, just that one play was like 40 yards of missed tackles. On top of that, just constantly falling forward. Florida State, if they would have tackled well at the line of scrimmage, Miami wouldn't have scored 20 points. Miami fell forward every freaking time. That's on Florida State. And give Miami credit as well. They deserve that. But they just won that battle over and over again. There is a technical problem. Part of it is lingering from prior coaches that weren't that good. That's obvious. But we still need to figure out what's going on with the new coaches too. Why is it so bad? And why is it getting worse? They got to figure that out. So to me, I would tackle to the ground. This team's not sniffing a national title anyway. You got to set it up for next year and the rest of this season. If you're getting ready to play Pittsburgh, who's going to be physical. And they don't care that you just lost to Miami. You screw around against Pittsburgh, you will lose on your home field, and this season will go into the toilet. Let me say that again. You screw around against Pittsburgh. You think they're not going to come in and play physical, try to run the ball down your throat, and just be a power football team in general? If you tackle like you did against Virginia or Miami, Pittsburgh will beat you. Period. It's up to Florida State to fix it. And I say the easiest way to do that is very simple. Practice tackling in practice this week to the ground, not thud, to the ground. If you don't want to do that, you can get beat at least a couple more times this year. They're still in danger of going 7-5. Florida all of a sudden got a lot better. That game's looking totally different. NC State's a little iffy. I get it. Pittsburgh's a team that could beat you. Clemson's gotten better. I mean, you don't tackle against some of these teams, you might lose 2 or 3 more games. That's a far cry from where you were 2 weeks ago. Tackling is the number one problem on this team by a million miles in terms of just execution. But the number one problem overall is something we've known for years. What is Mike Norvell's biggest weakness traditionally as a college football head coach? I'll give you a hint. It's what I specialize in covering, recruiting. The game against Miami shows you why, even though Mario Cristobal is not known as a great game day coach, and the game against Florida State is another example. They about screwed that up too. He's the most conservative head coach in college football. It'll cost them at some point this year, more than likely. Even though it is clear they're a top 5 team by any measurement, they'll probably screw up a regular season game or in the postseason, one way or the other, if not both. But they have so much talent. He's got a bigger range for error. Way bigger. They have much better defensive ends, much better offensive tackles. 2 of the 5 spots that are pivotal in college football: corner, D-end, D-tackle, offensive tackle, and then, of course, quarterback. Which of those spots was Miami not better? I would vote Miami in all 5. That's hard to fathom in a Florida State-Miami battle. Over 5? Mike Norvell's ineptitude on the recruiting trail cost Florida State a lot more last year, obviously, but it still hurt this year. Consider the following. Out of the 5 starters for the Noles up front this year, 0 were high school recruits. Not one. You know how you build O-line culture? You recruit from the high school ranks, and then you slowly, every single year, get 3 or 4 at minimum, really good offensive linemen. Who makes it is who makes it. Who leaves is who leaves. But every single year, you're getting guys that Georgia wanted, that Texas wanted, that Notre Dame wanted, that Penn State wanted, that Miami, that Florida. And Florida State didn't do that. Part of it, again, some of the former assistants failed even with some talented players. But Herb Hands, he's done a really good job considering. But he should have been walking into a different situation. And in fact, he shouldn't have been walking in at all because Norvell didn't make the coaching changes he needed, nor did he hire the right people in the first place. All those things combined, because they didn't recruit as well as they should, they didn't coach as well as they should, are killing Florida State right now. Florida State can beat just about anybody on their schedule in a given game if everything falls just right. But the game against Miami just shows you how thin a line that is. And it's talent above all else. So how does Florida State fix it? Well, there is good news. There is good news. The list that Florida State had, for whatever this is worth, I mean, they had like 100 kids there, give or take. I was looking at Zach Bostein's list over at Knowles 24/7. It's a tremendous group of players. Cameron Wilson, the defensive end, he's a Miami public school kid, committed to Syracuse. He was on campus. Florida State's defensive end situation is in shambles. And when I say D end, I mean that pure outside, undersized, speedy, long, athletic guy. They don't have that. The Desir twins are great, but those are power players. They're more strong side defensive ends. They don't have the 6'5", 240 kid. They don't. Caden Hall was on campus, the safety. He's as good a player as there is in the state of Florida in terms of just instincts. He's a kid from Pensacola, grew up a Knoll fan, committed to Florida. He was on campus. Hezzy Kent, another Florida commit, a kid from Brunswick, Georgia, just north a little bit, an hour or so from Jacksonville in the state of Georgia on I-95. He was on campus. Aaron Thomas was on campus. His dad played at Florida State. He's an Ohio State commit. He's an offensive tackle. Like, this group was awesome that they had on campus. It was awesome. Jay Timmons was on campus. Messiah Jackson, one of the best DBs. He's committed to Stanford. Florida State's trying to flip a bunch of guys. I give them all the credit in the world for this year. The unfortunate part is it's still, and I said this summer, I think it will be at least 2027 before Florida State is at a level of combination. A, Florida State has enough talent, and B, they've been in the program long enough and the culture to really be a good team. You just can't rely on transfers. And Florida State did a pretty good job with it this year, but still, it's not enough. High school recruiting is the number one reason Florida State is in this situation. Getting these guys is a great thing, and they had a pretty good class for 25, but it's still not enough. You've got to have top 5 classes if you're Florida State. It just is the barometer overall. They don't have a single twitchy edge rusher on the roster. That 240 guy that I talked about a minute ago. That's Norvell's fault. You're the head man. You've got a bunch of guys that are kind of close to that, but you've moved linebackers over to try to make it. But they're 6'1", 6'2" guys. They're not that 6'4", super long player. And Peter Boulware, circa 1996, is not walking in the door. For those who don't know, he played for Florida State in the mid-90s and played for the Ravens and with Ray Lewis and those guys for a long time. He had like 70 NFL sacks. He was legit. They just don't have that guy. To not even have one on the roster is amazing. That is 100% on Norvell. That is an epic fail. How you get there is mind-blowing, but that's where Florida State's at. So this year in the portal season, this is going to break the bank. You don't need one. You need 2 minimum. Good luck, because everybody's looking for pass rushers. And because of that, and remember, or in case you didn't know, there's only one portal window now. It's the winter window. Everybody's going to panic and overspend. Will Florida State have the cash to do that? I don't know. So I saw somebody on the Knowles 24/7 board say 26 could be special. Without a pass rusher? Not really. You could be really good, but I don't think Florida State will be a national title contender next year either, although they could be better. But they don't have the right pieces at the key spots. Who's your stud offensive tackle? Who's your stud pass rusher? Jerry's a senior. He's good at corner, but are they better than Miami at corner? Probably not. And they got 2 sophomores. It's just true. Defensive tackle, Big Darrell's leaving. They've got some other guys in there, a pretty good spot. They might be better than Miami starting next year. Miami's pretty experienced there, but it's close. And then at quarterback, I do like Kevin Sperry. We'll see what Miami and teams like that do. That may be the best news. They might have hit a home run with him. He looked pretty good from what we've seen, but we don't know. And maybe Tommy finds a way to get another year of eligibility. With the NCAA, you don't know either. But Florida State's got to recruit better across the board, but especially at those critical spots. Quarterback, offensive tackle, defensive end, defensive tackle, and corner. It started a little bit in this last class, but I think it's going to take the 26 and the 27 class as well to get Florida State back to a place in really where they should have been. And right now, by the way, they don't have a defensive end. They don't have one that is that pure twitchy guy yet. They're in on some, but I need to see it. And they need a couple, and they're also going to need a couple from the portal. It's a wild year. So there are my thoughts on what needs to happen. It's unfortunate tackling, being more clutch. I mean, that's just kind of self-explanatory. You got to make plays in the mainstream of the game. You can't put yourself in a spot where you didn't see the defensive secondary struggling when you put everybody in the box. I think they really have missed on how poorly they can tackle. The poor coaching decisions from past, you can't do anything about that now, but it's causing the team problems. You got to fix some things now. I think you should tackle to the ground in practice. And finally, you just got to recruit better. Florida State is trending in that direction, but they're not where they need to be. They still got to take it up a couple, not one, like a couple. They're a borderline top 10 recruiting class, and it's pretty good, but you need to be top 5 every year now. You've reached that point because Miami's on that borderline, and they're consistent with it. And they've got a way more NIL money than you do. That's not a good combination. You have to hit down this stretch, and we'll talk more about recruiting here on Locked On Seminoles, but that's a concern that I have. Even coming in 7th or 8th sounds good. If Miami's number 4 or 5, there's a reason. You're going to have to figure that out. So thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Please like, please subscribe, become an everydayer. And if you're on Apple, hit that download button to make sure you get your automatic downloads every day. We will see you again soon here on Locked On Seminoles.